Hey, I'm Dustin Hawkinsmith from PennLive. We're back on the PennLive Wrestling Podcast. It's our last one of Girls Wrestling Week, and we're making it a good one. We're joined now by Pennsylvania Senator Scott Martin, who serves Lancaster County. As a former PIAA state heavyweight champion himself, he's thrown himself behind the cause of girls wrestling and taken it into the Capitol on his social media pages. If you follow him, does that often. And I'm sure, even further into, the actual community in Lancaster County. Senator Martin, thank you for being here and taking part in this.
Well, thank you for having me, Dustin. I also want to say thank you to seeing the things that you have done this week and throughout to be able to tell the stories of these girls, their accomplishments, what this means to them has been great. And to have someone like yourself advocating too is fantastic.
Well, I appreciate that. And I think it's pretty clear, I am sincerely impressed by the choices that they make to pursue this, because it's not an easy choice to do it. It's not universally accepted, which is kind of why we're here. And so I do feel like, in particular, you wish you can kind of do more than 11, but the 11 girls who won state championships, to go from getting into a sport that not everybody accepts to excel in that sport, I think everybody can kind of get behind that.
Oh, without question, their drive and their motivation has just been beyond impressive. I mean, I got a chance to go out and watch some of the states out here at Spookynook when they have them, but it all felt the same. From what I remember of doing that. But the one thing that was missing that our girls deserve just as much as our boys is to be able to stand in the Giant Center at Hershey. To have a chance to get on that podium. We all know in the wrestling world what it means when you say we're going to Hershey, right? And those girls know it. And for me, I can't put into words enough to watch not only just what amazing athletes and competitors they are and how hard they've worked at mastering the sport, but to also see their passion for the future generations of young ladies. They want to basically blaze that path so that the girls have the opportunities and have the experiences that they themselves right now aren't fully able to participate in across the board. To me, their character and what that shows tells me why they're great athletes to begin with, but they're even better people, just amazing futures when I've seen the efforts that, so many of them put into this.
Well, and you know how hard it is to wrestle in the first place without anything else going on, the challenges that the sport presents. At what point in time did you really wrap your arms around and really kind of sink in that girls wrestling, that it's not an equal situation? When did you become passionate about this cause in particular?
Well, what's really interesting is I'm a youth coach, and on the youth level, we see so many young ladies who are involved in tournaments. I remember when we got our first young lady in the Pioneer Mat Club here in the Lampeter Strasburg School District. And, it's one of those things I started thinking about, like as they got older and they age out of the youth, is what are they moving to? All of a sudden, are they now going to say, I'm going to be a basketball player, or I'm only going to be able to do this from a club perspective somewhere and not be able to wear my school colors? I'm not going to have an opportunity to potentially get earn a scholarship, no different than the boys may have as well. And it really started to sink in. And over time, as I see on social media, or I start reading about some of the just amazing accomplishments of some of these young ladies navigating it, even a non-traditional path, or hearing about the girls' state championships, not PIAA, but the girls' state championships, and having like 300 competitors there. For me, it really, really set at home that this isn't right. We need to do this. They need to have the same opportunities. And when you add on top of that, seeing some of the legends in women's wrestling on the Olympic level, who are just blazing paths, and to see Mensa Stock and her interview after winning the Olympic gold this time is probably one of my most favorite sports moments that I can think of in a very long time. Knowing what she had, and it makes me wonder all the different obstacles she had to overcome, given that there's not a traditional sanctioned path to do this. So to me, it's just once that fire lit in me and I got connected with just so many groups like the Sanction PA folks, the Wrestle Like Girl and others, and realized that we're all coming together for that same cause, was something that we're not going to let go of until we make it happen here in Pennsylvania.
And for you to take this into the political realm, I mean, I think you have to have some belief that the meaning of this goes beyond just wrestling and into maybe simple humanity. What if you're not a wrestling person? Why, what are you trying to appeal to that person to make them understand that this is important beyond just the sport itself, maybe?
Well, for many different things. One is I do think it's one of the greatest sports ever, and to think that we can create equal opportunity between boys and girls, men and women, to be able to compete without having to compete against each other, to develop themselves, the character, the physical benefits of being involved in wrestling as well. And the character development is huge in my mind, that the girls should have that same absolute opportunity. But then you take it to another level. I actually believe this effort helps in Title IX related issues. When we talk about, when people get upset about the fact that certain schools, they're cutting certain men's sports at certain college institutions or whatnot, and I've seen it even happen in my alma mater at Millersville, that when we create the equal opportunity in a sport, that helps overall by creating a 1-for-1, and that to me is huge. And for the girls to be able to have the opportunity to also compete to further their opportunities in life, whether that's assistance in going to college, or to win and hopefully someday an NCAA championship, like to me, they deserve absolutely the same opportunities that our boys do. And for me, I will say that the expansion and growth of girls wrestling, I believe, has helped also grow the sport of wrestling and elevate that even more as well, which, we came from a dark time, not too long ago, where they were talking about removing it from the Olympics, if anyone could ever imagine. And see the wrestling community not only want to grow it for boys, but this influx of girls into that has provided a whole new energy on top of that to make it even more important to keep growing it.
Yeah, and I think you touched on the Olympics before and the timing of all that, and I think just the showing of the women's team in general, the showing of both teams really, but the showing of the women's team, and then as you mentioned, Tamira Mensah-Stock, I talked to the U.S. coach Terry Steiner earlier, and just about what effect that her as a ambassador can have, because I think there's probably a lot of girls out there and a lot of boys out there too, who are looking at the sport and maybe feel intimidated by it or think, oh, I'm not tough enough for that. You got to be a certain, and she kind of shattered, I think, that stereotype of wrestling, that you got to be this hardened warrior all the time, and just kind of humanize the sport.
No, absolutely. It definitely, that interview in particular, I mean, you talk about something that was humanizing,
Yeah, he was awesome.
Watching what meant, but Adeline and Helen, I mean, across the board, Sarah, all who just put on a tremendous showing in the women's side, alongside, some amazing matches as well on the men's side. It just shows you what this sport means. But for the women, these are trailblazers. And what's awesome is that we have more of them in the pipeline. We can make their ability to achieve what we saw going on in Tokyo, we can make that opportunity, more opportunities like that for girls. When I think about those state champs, when I think about the Lilies and the Montanas and others, I mean, we have so many just wonderful young ladies in the pipeline that I could easily see someday giving one of those same interviews, and they're fighting for that. And to me, that's what's just completely impressive about all of them.
They're in hard pursuit too. They have a very sharp focus on what they want, and what they want. When you talk about Lily and Montana in particular too, that's what they want to get all the way to the very top. And what reason would we have to doubt that they can get there at this stage of the game?
No,
I
absolutely.
want to go back to, the ceremony at the Capitol, what is it, 6 weeks or so ago at this
Yeah.
point. Clearly, I mean, the top priority is to recognize these girls and give them a chance to be recognized, where that opportunity isn't quite the same for them as it is on the boys' side, as you mentioned. But one of the cool things that I thought was a side effect of this was that they got a chance to talk to, people who were in the building who weren't you, who maybe didn't have their head wrapped around what this was and why it was important. And they got to teach, and they probably got to learn a little bit. What did your colleagues have to say on the flip side of that, that maybe they learned or maybe they took away that they didn't know about what was happening with this movement?
Well, one is we wanted to tell the story of what these girls are trying to accomplish, uh, where Pennsylvania stands now, which to this day, I'm still not very happy that what is it, 32, 33 other states already have, this is Pennsylvania. We are the one of the premier wrestling producers in the entire world, quite frankly. And I think statistics back that up. And the fact that we aren't being leaders, not from the girls' perspective, I'm talking about because they are leading, from giving them the stage and the platform and the mountain to climb, right? To me, I just don't. It does not sit well with me, because I think personally, wrestling's a different kind of sport. It's a build it you can come. I've seen other states who created a girls state championships and it's sanctioned, and then there's that trickle down effect in creating teams and whatnot. Pennsylvania, they want us to build it from the bottom up. And listen, I know they're competing against, or they have other sports to also potentially consider. I get that, that are pushing them to sanction as well. But for me, wrestling is a little bit different. And the fact is that we can pack a house for state championships already, even though they're not PIAA. I think it would open the door for girls who will now make that decision when they're aging out of girls wrestling, or just when they get to the point where they want to join a sport. Oh, there's one I can compete in PIAA. So I am going to choose that path. I think could be the bolstering that we need in order to get this done. But we were able to tell that story. First, we were able to get all the House and Senate members where those girls individually came from to be like, hey, look who's here. Look what they're doing. They just accomplished something very special. And we need your help to keep building momentum to get this done, or to communicate with your local school districts when you have your meetings with your superintendents or others, to make the case by, hey, how about starting a girls wrestling program to go hand in hand with the boys program that you have. That was a huge goal of what we did. And I know you were there, and to see people come into town like Bruce Baumgartner and others to really throw their support and weight behind the effort, not only meant a lot to me, but I know it meant a whole lot to a lot of the girls and the folks involved in Sanction PA.
Yeah, Bruce, I mean, to so many, to your point, to so many people is larger than life. And I mean that in a physical way. I want to know part of him, from a physical perspective, but also I thought it was, like what he's accomplished in the sport. And then also his experience being in an administrative capacity.
Yeah.
He's got a really unique perspective on it that's both, passionate and emotional because of his connection to the sport, but also can kind of understand the pathway here. So I thought his taking part in that was, I think it was a pleasant surprise to me to get a chance to talk to him. I know that.
Yeah, that was great for a guy like me too. I mean, I used to have his poster when I was in high school, and say that was the guy you looked up to. But no, I really thought that really gave a great, and of course we came out of that. And I think at the end of the school year, if you recall, there was like 3 quick schools that quickly sanctioned.
Yeah.
I'm hearing things about the Pennsylvania Catholic Conference in working at hopefully getting some teams set up too. And to me, it's about momentum. However, I will still say I think this is the type of sport that, in reverse, not building it from the ground up, that if we would sanction a PIAA state tournament, I believe everything down the line, the regional tournaments, the districts, I think that can all fall into place. But also say, hey, we as the PIAA take this seriously. We think it's definitely something we need to do. And then hopefully we'll see, and I believe we'll see a lot more girls who are walking away from it after their youth program, stay involved and want to do it.
I mean, the future feels a lot brighter and more attainable if that, because this is a barrier that's so unique to girls wrestling versus any other sport you might want to sanction. I mean, that is a deal breaker to a lot of girls, if not the girls, their families, or maybe even to the boys. You know, it's such a difficult thing to ask of them that it does kind of push people away. Um, John Mitchell, from your backyard, is there a point of pride in Lancaster County laying claim to that first one, and then B, I think having John do it in a way that can kind of show the way in terms of like, you don't need a large budget to get this done.
No, I think John has been a trailblazer all along, because I also believe he started, I think, the first girls state championships when they started them up. Just an amazing person and advocate, and he not only talks about it, but he obviously led the way. You know, he helped create the first program here in the school district of Lancaster with the McCaskey girls, and I really think serves as a great template that other schools could follow to show that this isn't something that's going to break the bank. This is something that can absolutely be done, and give more opportunities to our girls. So yes, I'm very proud. I've known John for a very long time, and it's funny. I see so many of these faces involved. My friend Pat, who's done a tremendous job, and all the folks with Sanction PA. Just incredible commitment to these girls. But like I said, to be on one of their leadership Zoom calls as they're strategizing, and to see Lily and to see Montana and see their involvement in it too, I'm thinking, man, these girls have more energy. They're training. They're like the best in the state. They're national champions, I believe, too, multiple times. To be also use their energies to be focused on being trailblazers. It's just inspirational.
I think at a certain point, embracing that it's bigger than them, and that they can be part of something special. I don't know if that was early on in their careers necessarily, but as they pushed their way through, I think it kind of sunk in. It'd be nice if somebody who got started at the same age didn't have to feel like they were out of the ordinary for pursuing this sport. And I think they've kind of thrown their momentum behind it. And, along those lines, can you imagine yourself looking back when you first started wrestling, if you had similar barriers, in addition to trying to learn the sport, if the future of your sport was you could only wrestle the opposite gender, let's say, would you have stuck with it? And would you have kind of embraced it the way that they have?
Well, I think actually there's a rule with the Catholic Conference. They don't even let their boys wrestle girls, I believe, statewide. But no, it's when kids are choosing something, they're choosing something because not only because they have a passion for it, but there's an energy there. There's a light at the end of the tunnel. There's something you're competing for, to challenge yourself for. And, as a young kid, I absolutely dream about being a PIAA champion. You want to bring home a gold medal. Like if the option for me back then was, well, you can still wrestle over here at, this club, and but there's nothing for you. There is no league championship. There is no District 3 championship. And of course, nothing else there. I don't know, would I've made that decision? I love the sport. I'd like to think I would have, but I just know that these girls are doing it. Right. And they are choosing to just be amazing at this sport, knowing that there's still got so much more. There's so much more work to do to have that light at the end of the tunnel for girls to even make that decision. And I can't underscore enough to see the success of women's wrestling on the world stage and in this country. To me, just shows that we got to start filling in the gaps for these girls on the Division I level, in every state, including ours here in Pennsylvania. We fill in those gaps to get there and bridge that we're just going to see this explode. We think it's going great now, which it is for the women's world level and for Team USA. Imagine if we had that that sanction pipeline, that more girls would have the opportunity to develop those skills. I think it's just going to be tremendous, not only for girls wrestling, but it's going to be tremendous for the sport of wrestling.
Well, I want to let you kind of end on that one because that's a pretty powerful note at the end. Just the big picture of all this, you know, us as a nation, we saw a really tough competitor in the Japan team, that did a lot of winning in Tokyo. But more girls makes the wrestling product better here. I do want to just give like anything in your scope here, that we can expect to see in the weeks or months moving forward, just along the lines of promoting girls wrestling or anything that's going to happen in the capital, just along these lines. Do you have anything in the works at this moment?
Well, first is we're still going to continue to do some of the things that we saw with Girls Wrestling Day in Pennsylvania. We're still going to honor these state champions and national champions when they achieve these great feats. But more importantly is we want to keep growing the influence of other legislators or involvement of them by potentially creating a wrestling caucus in between the legislators. And I've already found a couple that came out of the woodwork that I never knew were wrestling fans. Which to me is outstanding. Representative Ann Flood up in the Lehigh Valley area is another rich family history at Nazareth, another wrestling powerhouse. But we keep wanting to build these relationships so we can bring in people to talk to them and, hopefully use them as a vehicle too. When most legislators all go back and have meetings on a regular basis with their school districts, their school board members, their superintendents or whatnot, to be able to make this plug. Hey, how about you think about this as something, this many schools have done it. How can you guys do this too? It's a great opportunity for our young ladies. We want to keep doing that. But me personally, I want to continue to work with the and make inroads with the members on the PIAA board and with their executive director. They know how I feel about this. I ask about it in every meeting of the athletic oversight committee, which I chair, to bring this up and see where we're at in making this happen. So I still think we're moving in the right direction. Some of us are a little more impatient than others, but we're going to get there without question.
All right, Senator Scott Martin from Lancaster County, working in the Capitol, shine a light on girls wrestling, and really, as it turns out, find some other wrestling fans in the building. True wrestling guy through and through, former heavyweight champion here in Pennsylvania. Senator Martin, thank you for your time on this.
Thank you, Dustin.
And thank everybody for joining us in this edition of the PennLive Wrestling Podcast. Be sure to check out all of our coverage from Girls Wrestling Week. We got a cool video coming up today where all the girls are introducing themselves. They're sharing what they love about their sport, and they're giving their case of why the PIAA should sanction it. It's on the PA Preps Facebook page now. It'll be on PennLive a little bit later today. If you haven't already, check all that out. PennLive.com/highschoolsports/wrestling, and we'll see you next time.